Hey everyone, and welcome to this deep dive. Today we're going to be looking at how colors we see in nature can actually affect how we feel. Like, have you ever wondered if the color of a room can actually affect your stress level, or even how quickly you heal from being sick?
It's pretty amazing, right? There's actually a whole field of study called color psychology that looks at just that. How different colors can evoke specific emotional responses and even physical responses, too.
Yeah, that's super interesting. So we've got a ton of research articles and books and stuff to go through today, all about this connection between color and our well-being.
Oh,
And
no.
honestly, some of this stuff is pretty wild. You're going to want to hear this.
Yeah, definitely. But before we get to all that, I think it's important to understand how we even see color in the first place. It's kind of more complicated than we might think. Like
Yeah.
when you see something red, like an apple, for example, it all starts with light.
Oh, yeah, right? The light hits the apple, and then, what? It goes into our eyes.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
the light enters your eye and it hits the back of your eye on a part called the retina.
Oh, yeah, the retina. I remember learning about that in, high school biology. Something about rods and cones, right?
Yeah, you got it. So the cones are the important ones here for color vision. We actually have three different types of cones in our eyes, and each type is sensitive to different wavelengths of light. We have ones for short wavelengths, which we see as blue, then medium wavelengths, which we see as green, and then long wavelengths, which we see as red.
So it's like our eyes are picking up these different wavelengths and then sending signals to our brain. And then our brain is like, oh, that's blue, or that's green, or that's red.
Exactly. It's like a whole chain reaction happening in milliseconds. But then there's also this thing called color constancy. Have you ever noticed how a white shirt still looks white whether you're outside on a sunny day or inside under a lamp?
Yeah, actually, now that you mention it, that's pretty weird. How does that work?
It's our brains again. Our brains are constantly adjusting how we perceive color based on the lighting around us. So even though the light might be different, the color of the object appears to stay the same. It's pretty amazing.
That is really wild. So now that we know how we see color, let's get to the really cool stuff. What about all the different colors we see in nature, like the greens and blues and reds?
Each of those colors can actually have a unique effect on us. Let's start with green. It's often called nature's tranquilizer because it's been shown to have a calming effect. There was this one study where they found that hospital patients who had rooms overlooking a garden actually recovered faster than patients who didn't.
Whoa, seriously?
Yeah.
Just from looking at green.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. They think that the color green itself can actually help speed up healing. It's pretty incredible.
I could definitely see that. I always feel so much more relaxed when I'm out in nature, surrounded by trees and plants.
It makes sense. Green is associated with tranquility and healing and renewal. Think about lush forests and fields and gardens. It's no wonder we find it so soothing.
There's even this thing called nature therapy, right? Where people go out into nature specifically to help improve their mental well-being.
Exactly. And the calming influence of the color green is a big part of why that works. So green is awesome, but blue's pretty great too. The color of the sky or the ocean.
Oh yeah, blue is definitely my favorite color. I find it so peaceful and serene.
Me too.
Yeah.
It makes sense when you think about it. Blue is associated with relaxation, trust, stability, all these feelings of calmness and peace.
I've definitely noticed that a lot of hospitals and spas use a lot of blue.
For sure. It's no coincidence. They're trying to create a calming and relaxing environment. But nature's not all peace and quiet, though.
Right.
You have colors like red, too.
Yeah, red is definitely more attention grabbing. It's like nature's way of saying, hey, look at me.
Exactly. Red's really interesting because it's got this duality to it. It can represent love and passion, but it can also signal danger and alertness.
Mm.
Think about how red is used in nature. You have bright red flowers that attract pollinators, and then you have bright red markings on animals that warn predators to stay away.
It's crazy how the same color can have such different meanings. It can be both exciting and scary at the same time.
Totally. And there's a physiological reason for that, too. Red actually increases our heart rate and stimulates our senses, which is why it's such a powerful tool in marketing and advertising.
So red is all about intensity. But what about yellow? Yellow just seems so happy and cheerful.
Yeah, yellow is all about sunshine and happiness. It's associated with optimism and mental clarity, and it can even boost your mood and help you be more creative.
I feel like being out in the sun always makes me feel better. And that's nature's biggest source of yellow, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And sunlight is super important for our well-being because it helps our bodies produce vitamin D, which is crucial for both our physical and mental health. It's like the perfect example of how connected we are to the colors of nature. They're not just pretty to look at. They can actually have a real impact on how we feel and function. So we've talked about green, Blue, red, yellow. Now
Hmm.
let's move on to a color that's a bit more mysterious, purple. Like, lavender fields and twilight skies, even amethyst
Oh,
crystals.
yeah.
Okay.
Purple is definitely a cool color.
Yeah.
I remember when I was a kid, I had this amethyst geode, and I thought it was like magic.
I can see why. It's often associated with the things like spirituality and creativity and introspection. It has this kind of mystical quality to it.
And it's interesting how purple can be both calming and inspiring. Like lavender is used for relaxation,
Mhm.
but purple is also associated with royalty and power.
Yeah, it's got this unique ability to help you relax, but also spark your imagination. Now, we've talked about all these bright colors, but what about brown? You might not think of brown as a very exciting color, but it's everywhere in nature.
Oh yeah, brown is definitely important. It's like the color of the earth and trees, and it gives you this sense of grounding and stability.
Exactly. It's all about feeling rooted and connected to something bigger than yourself. And it's interesting how a lot of these nature therapy and mindfulness practices are really emphasizing that feeling of grounding.
It's like brown brings us back down to earth, literally,
Mm,
literally.
there.
So we've talked about individual colors, but what about when you start combining colors, like a sunset with all those oranges and reds and purples?
That's where the idea of complementary colors comes in. These are pairs of colors that are opposite each other on the color wheel, like blue and orange or red and green. When you put those colors together, they create a really strong visual contrast.
Oh yeah, I see what you mean. Like a blue lake with an orange sunset, or a green forest with some bright red berries. It's so visually striking.
And it's not just visually appealing either. These color combinations can evoke all sorts of emotions. They can create feelings of excitement and awe or peace and tranquility. It just depends on the colors you're using.
It's amazing how nature can do that. So we've been talking a lot about how we perceive color, but I'm curious, do different cultures see color in the same way?
That's a great question. And the answer is no. Different cultures actually interpret colors in very different ways.
Yeah.
Like, for example, in Western cultures, white is often associated with purity and innocence, but in some Eastern cultures, it represents mourning.
Wow, that's a huge difference.
Mm.
And red is another one. In the West, it's associated with love and passion, but in many Eastern cultures, it symbolizes good luck and prosperity.
It's a good reminder that our perceptions of color are influenced by our cultural background and experiences. So we've talked about how colors make us feel, but what about actually using color to improve our well-being? Like, I've heard of color therapy.
Yeah, I've heard of that too. It's like using specific colors to promote healing and balance.
There's actually a lot of research being done on how different colors can affect our mood, our energy levels, even our physical health.
Like I know some hospitals are using more natural colors and designs to try and create a more calming environment for patients. And then there's forest bathing, which is popular in Japan, where people go into the forest to like immerse themselves in the green and de-stress.
Those are great examples of how we can use color to create spaces that support our well-being. And you don't have to go to a forest to do it. You can bring nature into your home, too.
Right. Like adding some plants or choosing artwork with calming colors, or even just painting a room a color that makes you feel good.
Exactly. Little changes can make a big difference. But what about when you don't have those bright colors around, like during the winter when everything's kind of gray and dull?
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people who struggle with seasonal affective disorder during the winter, and I wonder if the lack of sunlight and those vibrant colors plays a role.
It definitely could. Our bodies and minds thrive on sunlight and those vibrant colors. When those are gone, it can really affect our mood and energy levels. So it's important to find ways to combat those winter blues.
Like maybe bringing some of those brighter colors indoors, like getting some houseplants or surrounding yourself with art that reminds you of spring and summer.
Those are great ideas. And don't underestimate the power of light therapy, too. It can really help to boost your mood and energy levels when there's less natural sunlight. So we've covered a lot of ground here, from the science of how we see color to the cultural meanings of different colors, and even how we can use color to improve our well-being.
Yeah, it's been a fascinating journey. What I find most amazing is how deeply connected we are to the natural world and how those colors can have such a profound impact on us.
It's a good reminder that we're a part of nature, not separate from it, and those colors are a big part of what makes life so rich and beautiful.
So it's like we have this whole like palette of colors to work with, and we can use them to like make our lives better and happier.
Yeah, exactly. And, even small changes can make a big difference.
Right. Like what kind of small changes are you thinking of?
Like adding a few plants to your desk at work or taking a walk in a park and really noticing the different colors of the flowers. Just little things like that can really have a big impact on how you feel.
That's a great point. So we've talked about a lot of different things today, like the science behind how we see color and the different ways that cultures interpret color. and like how color can affect everything from our mood to our health and even our productivity.
It's been quite a deep dive,
Yeah.
right? And then it all comes back to this idea that we're part of nature, not separate from it.
Yeah, and those colors are like a direct link to that connection.
Exactly. So as we wrap up, I just want to encourage everyone listening to really start paying attention to the colors around you.
Yeah, both in nature and in your everyday life.
Like notice how different colors make you feel. Experiment with bringing more natural colors into your home, your clothes, even the food you eat.
And I think the most important thing is to just spend time in nature, like really immerse yourself in all those vibrant colors.
Let those colors inspire you and calm you and remind you of how powerful and amazing the natural world is.
So that's it for our deep dive into the psychology of colors in nature. We hope you enjoyed it and that you learned some cool stuff.
And we hope you'll take some of these ideas and use them to make your life a little brighter and more colorful.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep diving deep.